Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today we are thinking about the inner demon crusher. Yes, that is a thinker, and that is something we need to think about. So, luckily, I have Lilia here who's going to help us really think about this in a way so that we can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, thank you so much for coming on to my show and sharing your time and your perspective with me. Let's go ahead and dive right in. The inner demon crusher. What does that make you think about?
Oh, yeah. So my brand name is called the Inner Demon Crusher because, we all have inner demons. Those are the
Mhm.
monsters of our minds, those self-defeating thoughts, those things that we think about that are damaging, damaging thought cycles or habits as well. Those habits that you want to break, but that are hard to break.
Yeah,
Yeah, so those are inner demons from my perspective and how we crush them. We want to crush them. When you crush those inner demons, they no longer have control over you. You can be above them, rise above those inner demons. So it's like, I'm
absolutely.
up here. So I crush those inner demons, put them in their place.
Exactly, right? They don't mess with you no more. That's the reason why I love your brand and the name of it because it's so impactful because if you put it in that aspect like you said with those thoughts, you know what I mean, those actions, those people, you know what I mean, everything that may seem uncontrollable or may feel like they're empowering you, you know what I mean, you have to realize like you can crush that. You know what I mean? You can put that under you and be above that and do something with that and be powerful again. And I think that is something that not a lot of people think about. And that's the reason why I want people to get their power back with this conversation. So I have to ask, what made you realize you needed to crush your own demons?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've had a lot of them myself, a lot of those inner demons versus little. Yeah, since I was a kid, I struggle with the eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia, each of those with major depression, with substance addiction, and the effects of emotional trauma being really pervasive in my life. And
Yeah.
not only those kinds of inner demons that have a clearer label, but there are lots of inner demons that don't have such a clear label. Sometimes you can label, okay, this is the demon of anorexia, this is the demon of drug addiction, this is the demon of major depression. But for myself, not all of them really had clear names. Like one of the inner demons that I wrestled with a lot was that overall, you don't have any worth until you accomplish something that makes you prove
Yeah.
worth here on earth. And that gets really sticky because it's very subjective what one person considers a worthwhile accomplishment, another one might not. So it's really setting yourself up to lose. It's a lose-lose situation where you think that your soul doesn't inherently have value and you need to accomplish something to give yourself value because, well, eventually you're going to talk to a person who does not value that thing that you just accomplished. So then what do you do? Do I pay attention to that? Do I try to one up myself? Do I try to do something else? So that can create a lot of confusion, a lot of wasted time and energy
Yeah.
life. So I'd say that the most important inner demon that I ever crushed was that one, the lack of inherent self-worth in my soul demon, because if
Yeah.
you think about it, that's the root cause of most of the others.
Exactly. I love that. Oh my goodness, I love that. I'm so glad that you said it because oh, nobody talks about that. You know what I mean? Because when we are trying to find our place in this world, it's easy for those people who have very obvious talents like singing or, you know what I mean, playing an instrument or good at math or science. You know what I mean? Those individuals, they find their place and they feel worthy. They feel like they have a purpose right away and it's clear. But for the other people who don't have those type of talents, or it's not just so obvious, you know what I mean, what our talents are, we go through that what is my place, what is my worth, what am I even really contributing, why am I even here, and then you start to doubt yourself in so many ways. And I love how you said this, because so many people have this internal problem, you know what I mean, where we have this little like, oh, this little thing in on our shoulders, like a little butler in our mind, just telling us all the things that we are not worthy of. And how you said it branches off to other areas. It does. Other different areas in our lives that we don't even realize, because then we start to put ourselves in situations that aren't comfortable for ourselves, that we never would want to put ourselves in. And it's like, it's frustrating. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. But I do love the fact that it's something that resonated with you, because you know what I mean, you knew you needed this change. You knew that this wasn't your real truth. You know what I mean? So how do you go about it on your daily life to like remind yourself that this is how do you like keep the demons down?
Yeah, it was very ironic. You know what's ironic is that actually, since I was little, I did have some pretty clear cut talents. I did sports, especially gymnastics, dance, and then music. But even with that, I felt like it was still hard to find my place in this world. The reason is because it's still very subjective. So, for example, I'm a professional musician, but music is still very, very broad. And what would happen is that often I would write music that I like, but I wasn't having such an easy time monetizing or building an audience with it. So then there becomes this dilemma of like, okay, well, do I stick with what's meaningful to me? Or do I stick with what is meaningful to my niche audience who does like what I do? Or do I try to make something more, quote, commercial? That's a big
Yeah.
dilemma in the music space. This idea of being commercial versus being artistic versus being intellectual about your work. So then I would seek out to try to make music that is more commercial, but I don't really identify with it. So it's even hard for me to, well, they call it selling out in the music business. They call it selling out, something that is more commercial, even though you
Yeah.
like it. Like for me, I had a hard time even being able to think of how I would quote unquote sell out, because
Yeah.
that is just so far from me that if I try to do it, I'm like 100% faking. But then again, if I just stick with making music that I like right away, just for myself, I have had a hard time monetizing on it. So that was a lot of dilemmas and issues with that. But, you know, they've become a lot better ever since I found partners to work with. So
Yeah.
band. I'm in a metal band called Carcaza. I also do acoustic music, worship music, and also gothic piano and vocal music. So I do a few different kinds of music these days. But it's been very helpful to partner with someone who has a different perspective on music than myself, because we can bounce ideas off of each other. So we can put our heads together to come up with something that is artistic and creative enough to be interesting for me, yet at the same time is still not too complicated for more massive audiences to understand, because I myself tend to get very complex with what I do, whereas my partner, Bruno is his name, he tends to be a lot more simplified in what he does. His tastes are more simple, whereas my tastes are more complex. So putting our heads together and coming to a middle ground has been very helpful. So
Yeah.
that's been also very essential to me, crushing these inner demons, because it just showed me how everything is subjective, and also that it's not always a black and white, either or, this or that you can come to these middle grounds. And I feel like most inner demons that we struggle with do have to do in some extent with extremes and exaggeration, something being out of balance. So when we can find a balance,
Yeah.
that can help crush a lot of these inner demons.
Oh, absolutely. And to go back to subjectiveness, that is something that is not recognized, because we have gone to that just that comfortability and just being the same, or just having that copy paste mentality of imagery and just everyone doing the same thing. But in reality, it's just being authentic, you know what I mean? And just being who you are is going to be subjective, and what you feel is an accomplishment will be subjective, and your music is going to be subjective. My podcast is very subjective, you know what I mean? mean? So it's like everything that we put out into the world is very subjective. It's just not getting stuck with the people who are not ready to receive what we have to put out into the world. You know what I mean? Because a lot of the times artists like yourself and myself who creates beautiful beautiful masterpieces, you know what I mean, that we can relate to, that we can understand and resonate with our hearts with, and we publish it out into the world and we put it out into the world and people don't resonate with it and they don't understand. It's like we have to remember it's okay. You know what I mean? Like it's okay if they don't understand because it's not for them at this time. You know what I mean? Artists, we publish for the generations that come after us because they're ready for it. You know what I mean? We're always above our time because we see world in a different way. You know what I mean? You put out music in a different way. You know what I mean? You put your heart out in a different, I write in a different way. You know what I mean? I think in a different way. Whereas like when we put this out into the world, we can't be mad at the people who don't understand and who can't appreciate what we're doing. But later on in the years, they will appreciate, they'll be able to say, oh wow, Lilia, man, she put this music out and it just sings to my soul. You know what I mean? Like those are the things that we will never hear but you know what I mean? In our hearts, we know that when it's out in the world, somebody will have that. And I think a lot of the times artists, they get really stuck in the now because they can't get the what they want with what everybody else gets. So they end up selling out, like how you said. You know what I mean? They end up conforming themselves into what society wants for the now, but then they feel like they're losing themselves, like you said. And I love how you said, like, I can't even fathom the thought of selling out because it's so
Yeah.
distant from you. And I love that because people don't realize, like, when you are so in tune with who you are, yeah, with who you are as a human being, it's like to even go to that point is not even worth it. I'm okay where I'm at. You know what I mean? Like I'm okay doing what I'm doing because I know I'm doing what's right by my soul and I'm okay. So I love that by you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. It's also been I think that there's a lot of struggle that we have with our inner demons, that there are social stigmas around them. So, for example, I've noticed that most inner demons that I've struggled with have to do with something being out of balance. Whereas a lot of society would just label it stupidity, like, oh, if you abuse substances, drugs, that means you're stupid. Or if you're depressed, that means you're just weak-minded and stupid. Like I've had people say, like, oh, only stupid people are depressed, or only really weak-minded people feel that emotion of depression. And by the way, depression, as in major depressive disorder, isn't an emotion. It is more of a brain chemical imbalance. So there is no level of intelligence related to that. Like no level of intelligence can stop your brain chemistry from getting off balance in that way. And some people are more genetically predisposed than others, and it's not a matter of intelligence or stupidity. It's just a way that your brain is structured.
Exactly. And people are they think so much on a surface level that sometimes they don't allow themselves to see past the possibilities of reasons why somebody's acting out in a certain way. You know what I mean? Because when you said it's a chemical imbalance, oh my goodness. I'm with you 110% because people don't realize how something so simple as a chemical imbalance can cause us to act a certain way, move a certain way, just differently that people just don't understand. They can't comprehend. But they need to start respecting the fact that just because you can't understand why somebody's a certain way doesn't mean that it gives you the right to judge them. You know what I mean? And label them as stupid or label them as weak because put
Yeah.
them in the right circumstance and they'll be the bravest one out there. They'll be the first one to come and defend whoever that needs to be defended. You know what I mean? So it's like you can't say that. You know what I mean? People can't say that and assume that. But sadly, it's their ignorance. You know what I mean? Sadly, it's their subjective growing up. You know what I mean? How people grow up, they only see what in life. So what their perspective is only going to be what they see. So if they never seen somebody in a depressive state of mind and see them dark in the room out there for weeks and months on end in the dark, they're not going to understand how it takes a toll on everybody around them. And they're not going to understand how it takes a toll on that human being. You know what I mean? They don't have that understanding. So there's a lot of lack of understanding, a lot of ignorant confidence that are allowing people to just voice out that opinion, but it's like, why can't we just admit the fact that you don't have that understanding? Just admit the fact that you have the understanding, and then then you'll seem like you'll have more compassion to the other person and be like, you know what?
Understanding than have compassion. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically with the area of depression, it's tricky because there are a lot of people who say, well, I've experienced really bad things. I never had depression. I know a lot of people experience some very negative adversities, some very difficult adverse circumstances, but never get depression. So then why do you have it? Oh, that must mean that you're, quote, weaker or less intelligent. Like, well, it's not really about that. If you don't have that certain type of genetic disposition to be able to develop major depressive disorder, then it would be very hard for you to get into that state of depression just from your life circumstances alone. It's not only because of circumstances in life, it's also a certain kind of brain chemical imbalance that has to happen for you to actually get the major depressive disorder, like clinical strength depression. Because a lot of people don't realize that actual clinical depression is different from sadness. Sadness is an emotion, like Inside Out. Okay, sadness is that little blue girl in Inside Out. Everyone has sadness. Not everyone has depression. They're actually not the same thing. So, it's not anyone's place to judge. Like, oh, well, why do you have depression? I haven't, and I've had a quote worse life than you. When people try to
Yeah.
come like this weird trauma Olympics thing, like, oh, my life has been worse than yours, so you don't deserve
Ah, I
depression.
hate that. Yes.
He's just going nowhere fast, man. That was like really goes. But it's ironic how much we can spin on that hamster wheel. Like in my younger years, I used to spin on that hamster wheel too. When I realized that what I had was major depression, that's what, especially when I was about 20, 21 years old. And I look at everyone around me. I'm like, well, that person probably had a hard time. That person did. But why aren't they feeling this way? Why is it just me?
Yeah.
I was spinning on this, never-ending hamster wheel of, oh, like, what is wrong with me? Am I too weak-minded? Am I too stupid? Do I just not work hard enough? Maybe if I worked harder,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have time. That's some people even propose that as a solution, like, oh, if you just worked more, you wouldn't have time to feel depressed. So then I
Yeah.
would like have these crazy nonstop schedules. I like burning myself the hell out and making it worse with that.
Yeah, like that's ridiculous. Like you schedule in to be depressed. Like who does that? That's ridiculous to me. And for them to even say that is just like, oh my goodness, you sound more ignorant to putting the blame and making you feel like a victim because this is how something that you can't control. And people don't realize that. Like if you could control not being depressed, wouldn't you choose not to? Sometimes it just happens naturally. It
So
comes over you like just rain coming through the town. You can't control the rain stopping. You can't control it from coming. So it just comes. And then when it comes, oh my goodness, it's just oh, it comes. You know what I mean? And it lingers and people don't realize that. So yes. Yes, I think this is a great one for people to remember when it comes to crushing their inner demons because it's like we have to put into perspective. We may not have gone through the same things as somebody else, but it does not devalue what you've been through and it does not devalue what you're feeling. And it's like what we feel is real, but it doesn't define us. And I think that's something that I'm learning is that I'm not defined by my emotions. My emotions are here to help me. And it's like when I'm learning this, I'm trying to remember how my emotions are helping me, and emotions helps you with boundaries. You know what I mean? Helps you set boundaries. It helps you step an understanding within yourself. And it's like when we take the time to learn ourselves versus stuffing ourselves with more shit that we don't need to, you know what I mean? Then we can actually be like at peace in a different way where it's just like, wow, I'm actually crushing it.
yes, exactly. And another thing that people don't realize about crushing inner demons is that sometimes it actually takes a long time to be fully recovered or overcome fully. So like well, I think that the major depression is a good example of that too, because where my experience was that this was when I was just turned 20, I had 4 months of extremely heavy depression where my digestion was really bad and all my dreams were about death. And I would always be very, blurry and very dizzy and hazy and out of it and extremely fatigued. So that wait lasted about 4 months because I was very conscientious about how I can get my body to produce more of these feel good neurotransmitters, just like a little more like endorphins and adrenaline, getting that flowing. So that only lasted about 4 months. But then after that, I took a very long time to get 100% back to normal. I felt like I was lingering at about 80% for years, like 6 years or so. I felt like I was just lingering. Not even longer. It was like, yeah, I think it wasn't until I was 28 years old where I really felt like I was back to normal. Like how I like I've restored my energy levels and my physical and mental function to the way they were before this major depressive episode happened. And, I feel like a lot of what made that linger, like what made it take so long, 8 years for me to get 100% back to being myself instead of hovering around 80% the whole time. I feel like it was because I was buying into a lot of these social stigmas because it's always a trap. Like, let's say, for example, if you choose to work through depression on your own without getting professional help, then, that's the choice that I made initially, and it was working well for me at first. And then there'll be someone else who says, oh, well, you're stupid because if you'd just gone professional therapy earlier, you'd be over it earlier. It was like, well, I was taking a bit of a different approach because I really felt that it was very important for me to not have too many external influences on my mind because I knew that I was at 20 years old, very impressionable. So if a therapist says, oh, I think this, and that, I would really subscribe to that and cling to it, even if it turned out like inaccurate. And then later on in my late 20s, I did get some therapy. And then there's a stigma that you got therapy. Oh, only weak-minded, stupid people who can't solve their own problems have to complain to a therapist. Oh, it's just because you're all lonely and have to pay someone to pretend to be your friend because you don't have real friends and because no one likes you. It's like a lose-lose situation, right? Whether you get
It really is.
someone's got some shit to say about that. That is 100% based on ignorance,
It
anyone
is.
and should be free to make the decision for
Yeah.
themselves as far as how to recover from something adversive like that. But it's just ironic how no matter what you do, there's always some shitty stick. If you deal with it on your own and you're very like emphasizing that mind body connection, because that's what I was doing initially to get to my
Yeah.
first or roughest months. I was really connecting to myself and I wanted to remove myself from external influences because I really just wanted to connect with what I am thinking and feeling. Then
Yeah.
after a few months, I got to be more, I guess you can say, sociable, inviting more influences and kind of processing that information, like who am I relative to the world around me.
Yeah.
Then older, I was just studying more the technicalities of psychology and decided to get a bit of professional counseling, in an amount that was right for me. And like the whole time, there's always somebody saying something about it. Either, oh, you should have gotten more therapy, or you should have gotten less, or the fact that you're depressed in the first place shows you're weaker and dumber than the average.
Yeah.
Like, if you say that, you make yourself sound ignorant.
Yo, that is the realest thing that people really need to remember is that no matter what you do, it's going to be a double-edged sword. You're either going to stab yourself or you're going to stab somebody else because the fact that you're doing it, it hurts them. Because, you know what I mean? Like parents, oh, you're getting therapy because I'm such a bad mother. I'm such a bad parent. But it's like, no, it's not about you. It's about me. You know what I mean? So it's just like, no matter what, we are always going to make somebody upset. And it's like, we have to choose who are we going to make somebody up? Who's going to be upset, me or them? I have to live with me. I have to be with me 24/7 of the day. I'm going to choose my happiness over anybody else's happiness. And the day that I decided that, whew, I made so many people, I'm still making people mad. People are still mad at me. And it's like, I don't care anymore. Like, I've learned to not care. And it's like, I've learned to detach myself from people and to detach myself from words. Words are the things that linger. You know what I mean? Because words can replay people. You can forget faces. People, you can forget their tone, the voice, and how it rings in your ear. You know what I mean? You can forget all of those things. But words, oh, that can live rent free in your mind because, you know what I mean? It can play at any given moment and then it can turn into your tone, into your voice. So it's like we have to remember the words that we allow and not allow that. And so for you to say that this is the route, I think you did it beautifully. Honest to goodness, I do because I've done it the same way. I did my own and I haven't done the therapy yet because of my life situation, but I'm doing it in my own way of my where I'm still getting that healing
Yes.
process that, you know what I mean, that journey. And for all of those people that are around you that are so negative and toxic, girl, you need to separate yourself from whoever keeps on talking to you like that because they are not good for you because that is not how you need to be because you are doing the right things. And at the end of the day, that is another type of demon. You know what I mean? The demons that are outside of you. And people don't realize that like there's a lot of demons inside of us, but there's a lot of demons outside of us that try to attack us from the outside because they know it no longer can attack us from the inside. And that's where it becomes tricky is recognizing when to identify from the outside when I'm being attacked because we can take criticism, be like, yes, this is good for me. This I need this, you know what I mean? Because it's an outside in. But then we also have to know when it's not constructive criticism and when it's actually there to hurt us. You know, it's having that discernment, you know, and I think that's one thing I'm also working on as well is having that discernment. And it sucks because Lilia, I could feel like we could keep talking about this down a rabbit hole, but time is catching up to us and I'm so sad. So I have to ask you, what can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Oh, okay. Well, my slogan is crush inner demons, live in freedom, because that is the ultimate freedom is to not be controlled by negative forces inside yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that you got to get that inner freedom. You know what I mean? It just kind of wraps up the whole entire thing. That's beautiful. See? And ladies, go ahead.
When you feel like you're battling against yourself, your brain will basically do what's called confirmation bias. It'll find reasons to be more upset in your environment. So if you feel like you're not fully free inside of yourself, your brain will find evidence in the outside world that I'm being oppressed by this and this and this and that. It'll perceive everything as far more oppressive and threatening and dangerous than it probably is
Yeah.
objectively. So that's very important because the way that we feel inside colors our perspective of how we view our outside too.
Absolutely. See? Oh my goodness, beautiful. That is great to leave us off with to keep on thinking. Goodness gracious, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to know more about her, because how could you not with this conversation? Am I right? How could you not? If you guys want to know more about her, please check her out on my website. I have her lovely photo there. Just boop, click right under, gain access to all of the goodness that she has to offer with her website so that you can continue on thinking. So with that being said, bye.